troops not being skilled or not being equipped, but it was certainly a morale issue. The loss of U.S. Air support was a fundamental issue as well.
And in terms of the Afghan people now, no doubt many petrified, uncertain, the trepidation I can't even begin to imagine. But they have been here before, albeit a generation ago. What do you think is going through their mind about what's in store for them as the Taliban take over again?
Well, there's certainly a lot of anger among Afghans at the moment. Much of it channeled at Ashraf Ghani and his close entourage. Much of it channeled at the Americans, at the international community for abandoning them once again. As you said, they've been through this before. The months running up to this event, there have been a lot of comparisons to the events of the 1990s, to President Najibullah. Now the departure of Ashraf Ghani has angered Afghans across the board. They feel they were entitled to some kind of an explanation, some closure. That's not going to happen. There is a great deal of panic and fear about the future. There really is nothing more an outgoing president can say. He's not part of the process anymore. There is a transitional government being formed. Lots of speculation now about what the makeup of that government will be, that transitional government. People are afraid because they've been here before. They don't know whether to trust the Taliban spokesman's promises about a smooth and peaceful transition. There are promises coming from Taliban spokesmen that it's going to be peaceful, that there's going to be a general amnesty. But there are people who are justifiably concerned because they were working for the government or they were working in ministries, and they're afraid of retribution. And they think, they've been here before. They know what happens. So, but things might be different this time around. There is hope. People say that for the Taliban, international legitimacy is critical this time around. International relations will be something that they will not risk losing, and they know that there are certain conditions that will guarantee this. And among these conditions is ensuring a smooth, peaceful transition. So that might give hope to the Afghans right now who are in a state of panic.
How much personal responsibility can Ashraf Ghani take for this? Because in the 24 hours we've seen, I'm going to say his power ebb away, but it's been more of a dam burst in the past 72 hours, hasn't it? That how much was he stymied by the Americans being in control, and how much of it is down to his personal leadership or lack thereof?
That question is certainly an important question. I think personally it's unfair to lay the blame squarely on one man's shoulders. Let's remember that the country he inherited upon ascending to the presidency wasn't exactly in the best condition. There were already a lot of problems to deal with. Certainly, he made mistakes. We can go through those mistakes. In the last few months, there was criticism that essentially the government had become a triumvirate, that it had become a bit isolated. But certainly, there was attempts to solve the problems, but let's also remember that Ashraf Ghani's background was economics, that he was meant to be a president who was going to develop the economy, build the state. He wasn't meant to be a wartime president. And all of this happened during his term in office. Yes, he made mistakes, but I believe it is unfair to say it's him alone responsible for Afghanistan.
And realistically, what kind of Taliban does Afghanistan face for its leadership? We've heard from a number of people that, well, it's a different Taliban now. It's a different generation. It's more savvy, that it's going to want to be able to work with the international community to legitimize itself on the world stage. But anybody who remembers the Taliban knows it's a strict organization. It pulls no punches, and its version of Sharia law is intense. Just how much has it realistically changed, do you think?
$1 million question. It's been debated now for a few years. Is this the Taliban 2.0? Well, they've certainly gotten better at public relations. They've certainly gotten better at marketing themselves. They've polished their propaganda machine, if I can put it that way. Their spokesmen issue communiques in several languages. They're accessible to the media. and they use the right jargon. So they've done a good job at that. Have they convinced the public? It's difficult to say. Again, as I said, it's been as much an information warfare as it has been a military campaign here, where we've seen information from both sides conflicting. On the one hand, Taliban saying that they have kind of kept up with the times and they're okay with giving women some rights, but then evidence on the ground being presented by others that hasn't actually been the case. I think we're going to have to wait and see. At this point, we can only hope that, yes, it's a new generation of that are members of this group, and that they've been exposed to the world, that they're not isolated, and that they have evolved, but there is little to suggest that at the moment. We can only hope. Let's also remember that there are those who will say that the Taliban isn't one group anymore. It's not a centralized body, and that the Doha negotiators may not necessarily have control over the fighters on the ground, that there is a kind of divide, that there's a multiple Taliban rather than one group.
Does that mean we'll end up with two different Afghanistans then? So you'll have the moderates with the marketing in Kabul trying to do the talks, but really with no control over the less watched, more rural locations around to the west and the south.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know how much of it is marketing and how much of it is reality. Because on the one hand, we had the Doha negotiators saying reduction in violence. On the other hand, we'd see them ramping up the violence. So it seemed to be that there was no connection between the two. So we have to wait and see. Everybody's uncertain about them. That's the thing. When I speak to people on the ground in Kabul, that's what they're uncertain about. They're saying, does it mean the last 20 years that we've had these freedoms, that my sisters have been educated, that my wife has gone to work, does it mean that it's all over? That's it, it's finished? We don't know. We've had sort of abstract statements coming out of Taliban spokesmen at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see.
Meantime, you're seeing the Afghan people are seeing their former friends leaving on planes, the American flag now down from the US Embassy. A tense time for those people there. Tanya, really appreciate you joining us on RT and sharing your expertise of the past 2 decades of covering Afghanistan. Good to talk to you.
I don't know why I clicked on Quora, but this side, China and the West are recolonizing Africa. Oh, it's going to involve the United States in there too, how China's taking over Africa and why the West should be worried. Well, it seems like we're not really in there, huh? What China is really up to in Africa. You know how I like Forbes. So let's just see what we got here. And with this, Africa has become the fastest urbanizing region of the world, with rural migrants moving into cities at a clip that has even surpassed that of China and India, which is pretty amazing because China and India, people were going like from poverty to $30,000 a year every month. Like, all right, they were going from like lower class to middle class, like at the rate of 30,000 per month. At least from the information I've heard. And I still believe that it is $3 trillion. I mean, I guess if you include the opium and the lithium, that's definitely, okay, I can see the $3 trillion. But, also lithium is a rare earth mineral. Well, it's a mineral needed for batteries. And so that can easily be adjusted, inflated, or whatever else. It's all about production. As the continent becomes one of the final frontiers of the fourth industrial revolution, basically all the continents, because North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and South Africa, Africa, African continent. The only one that's left out is Antarctica, but we're not allowed to know what's going on down there. By 2050, Africa's 1.1 billion person population is slated to double, with 80% of this growth happening in cities, bringing the continent's urban headcount up to more than 1.3 billion. The population of Lagos alone is growing by 77 people per hour. According to McKinsey, by 2025, More than 100 cities in Africa will contain over 1 million people. And so, like, are we starting to see, like, how, geopolitics is coming into all this? What is, I mean, is China gonna, because you got Russia and China, who are major superpowers. Then you got the European Union and such. But I think they're more along the West. So it's like, we're still all being led by the Queen of England. It goes into that hierarchy. I'm starting to go down the rabbit hole. But, so, let's just get into this money. Africa, the world's second fastest growing region, and many are predicting that it is well on its way to becoming a $5 trillion economy, as household consumption is expected to increase consumerism at 3.8% yearly clip to 2.1 trillion by 2025. And this was articled in 2019. October 3rd, 2019. So, I'm just trying. What is America? A role. What is China going to outdo America and Russia? Because they're going to be able to take over the Taliban, take over Afghanistan. They're going to be the first foreign entity to come into that nation and actually occupy it peacefully. Quote unquote peacefully. Yeah. And believe what you will, people. Believe what you will.